Alright, what's going on YouTube? Today we're taking a look at another question you guys have submitted in the comments. Wasim Rakanj asks, some people take 1% crit. Do you have any ideas or advices on that? Thanks for the question. So basically, is it worth it to take 1 crit and 8 AD marks instead of just 9 flat AD marks? My first impulse towards this question was to immediately shut it down and make a snarky comment about his intellect. Everyone knows people take this rune just to troll. Do they? Is there a chance, however remote, that they are actually right? At that point, I realized that in order to find out, I'd have to do some working out. First, let's take a look at what each rune gives us. Every AD rune gives us a total of 0.95 AD. On the other hand, every crit rune will give us a total of 0.93% chance to crit for twice the damage. Keep in mind, we're not taking into consideration effects like Infinity Edge because that has nothing to do with the marks themselves. With this information in mind, the question then becomes, how much AD do I need to make taking this rune viable? In order to find out, we're gonna have to do some math here. Now, don't freak out and close the video just yet. I know some people hate math, but don't worry, just bear with me here. For the method we'll use, we'll have to define a little equation to calculate the total amount of AD every auto attack deals, depending on the type of runes we take. It's not quite exactly the same damage you'll actually deal, but it's better to look at it in this way to isolate the variables from other factors and take only the runes into consideration. So it'd be a little bit like this. Every auto attack deals an amount of damage equals to your total AD plus the damage you get from the AD marks. So if every mark gives you 0.95 extra AD, we have to multiply that value by the total number of marks you have, like that. Now, some of the more observing of you might be wondering, where's the crit? Now, crits double the damage dealt on the auto, but they have a probability of 0.93 chance of this actually happening. However, whenever you auto, there is a portion of your damage that always happens, which is the one we just analyzed. Therefore, instead of multiplying by 2, we multiplied the whole thing by 1, since it's the damage you'll always deal, plus 0.93 times the amount of crit runes you have. This gives us the final equation for every attack on average. Keep that in mind, we'll come back to it later. All we need to do now is set the number of runes to specific values and take a look at where their graphs collide. That will tell us how much AD we need for them to deal the same amount of damage. Now let's take a look at this graph. Our x-axis here represents AD from other sources, like items, and the y-axis is the damage per auto attack. This first black line represents the damage we get from 9 flat AD marks without crit. Now obviously crit is better than raw AD the more AD from external sources we get. But how much AD do we actually need from other sources to deal more damage on average every auto attack? Let's plot another line, which represents 1 crit and 8 AD marks. We'll make it green. As you can tell, they're extremely close, and as it turns out, on average, that 1 crit rune is going to be better than the 1 AD rune when we have more than an external total amount of 94.6 AD. Now you might be thinking, well, that's really not that much AD. I can get that much after my first BF purchase. But remember, I told you the word average was tricky. It's actually not this straightforward. To prove the point further, let's take a look at replacing our marks completely for crit runes in our green function. As you can tell, it gets changed quite a bit here, obviously making it worse at early levels when we don't have enough AD to make it worth. The AD threshold for 9 crit runes to be worth is therefore increased to 102.2 AD. But that's really not the important part. Let's take a look at 2 more functions. Like we stated, the green line represents the average damage for critting, but we know crits don't actually work that way. The functions we'll draw will represent when we crit on red, and when we don't in blue. Now we start to understand the problem. Notice the massive gap in damage between the red and the blue lines. Sure, your crits will hit like a truck, but most of the time you'll actually land a blue auto attack. Keeping this in mind, let's swap 1 crit rune and 8 AD marks, but this time also taking into consideration its crit and non-crit versions in red and blue. Notice how the whole thing just moved up? That's obviously because we're injecting a lot more AD into our formulas, and therefore making both the floor and the ceiling for our autos that much stronger. Also notice how the blue line is pretty much on top of the black one, since the difference is almost zero. It's less than 1 AD, 0.95. So what's the conclusion here? Well, 1 AD is very negligible, and changing it for almost 1% crit might be worth because you're not losing that much. However, this is certainly not the case for anything but only one crit rune. If you take any more, you increase the variance of your damage in the early game, and you might risk losing your lane. And that's pretty much about it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you're probably gonna like my Should You Rush Infinity Edge video. It's a lot of math, the thematic kind of thing, yeah, sure. Or perhaps you just want to know how the new League client looks? Click on the Alpha client video. Or subscribe, if you want. I don't know, maybe you want. Yeah, sure. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.